What comes to your mind when you think about Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links? Is it something more nostalgic like the anime? An idiot's version of real Yu-Gi-Oh?
Alright, we'll just make Raptite and main phase. Yep, that's it is Duel Links, yep.
Perhaps it's the iconic trailer from many eons ago. Or maybe it's just gacha and overspending on a tier 4 deck.
Oh my god, this is crazy! So call me, maybe.
Recently, I took it upon myself while streaming over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Farfa, to do a little bit of a Duel Links retrospect. A review of sorts, trying to emulate the position of a new or returning player. I was going to get back into the game after a long break, so what does this game have to offer people like me? Now, of course, I will caveat and say that there is a very specific and niche privilege to someone in my position. I did all of this on a stream with thousands of viewers. So having a ton of already invested players with experience throw advice at you constantly is gonna be somewhat helpful. Mostly? Kinda. And so, if you watch this video until the end, you will be kinda shocked, elated, but sometimes disappointed with some of my findings and research into Duel Links. In January 2022, the release of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel changed everything for the digital landscape of Konami's licensing of one of the biggest anime franchises in history. Master Duel across all metrics became the way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Online and met the demands for all kinds of players that Duel Links just wasn't really catering to. Duel Links is Yu-Gi-Oh! But ultimately, it just isn't going to scratch the itch of a TCG player. And as a population begging for a way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! The card game online, Master Duel was surely going to be it. Did it hit the mark? Different video. At the time, the biggest content creator for Duel Links was Decade, formerly Duel Links Meta, who with no understatement essentially carried the entire competitive landscape of the game in the West. Weekly tournaments, meta breakdowns, deck profiles, all garnering millions of views. Decade's impact on the Duel Links landscape could be a documentary in and of itself, but here's the problem I remember seeing with this. There was no one else really putting up these levels of numbers within the Duel Links space. Out of the hundreds of Yu-Gi-Oh! Friends I've made over the years, I think I could name about 4 of them who have actually played longer than like a season. I know, personal anecdote, non-objectifiable reality, but where are the Duel Links players? According to Steam charts, the platform which covers the PC client, not the mobile client, Duel Links was at a steady, 6,000-7,000 concurrent players, with bigger numbers being put up around COVID, easily attributable to people having more space and time, and then with Master Duel becoming the de facto title and quintessential gameplay for online Yu-Gi-Oh!, Duel Links, at least to me and the communities I occupy, appears to have kind of fallen off a cliff, dividing its average concurrent player base by 2 overnight and dwindling to around 2,000 to 3,000 players per month ever since. So, here we are in August 2025. Duel Links kind of a shell of its former self, yet still doing fine by the numbers? According to the stats and App Magic, the numbers of current Duel Links was 100,000 downloads in July, and that is around the same as Master Duel. As for revenue generated, an estimated $1 million, half of the $2 million that Master Duel raked in, not to be compared to the absolute titan of Pokemon Pocket or Shadowverse release, but it's still alive and apparently not trailing too far behind Master Duel. According to Steam charts, Duel Links amasses around 1,700 active users per month, which is fairly small compared to Master Duel, about 10 times the size. But of course, Duel Links being a primarily mobile game is obviously going to have a mammoth following on devices outside of Steam. So this could be a very misleading statistic. We just don't really have a way to gauge this other than some of the estimations made on App Magic. App Magic being a website that kind of gauges the popularity of games based off of the publicly available downloaded amounts of the game itself on various devices and through different app stores. And then with the market research there's obviously going to be a lot of extrapolation and estimation when it comes to the revenue specifically, because that's just something that isn't, publicly available. But it's the closest that we can have to kind of seeing where the game is at. At its core, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links is Speed Duel, which most of you are probably familiar with, but if not, it is a form of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where normal summons, special summons, extra deck, the spells and traps, they're all the same, with the caveat that there is no main phase 2, and there's less zones. In practice, it is just Yu-Gi-Oh!, but in theory, a little less slower and a little less crazy. In theory. The biggest difference is that Duel Links has skills. These are abilities that immediately can be used whenever their activation requirement has been met. They either have some sort of archetype relevance to their anime character, or some sort of utility regarding the meta. These can range anywhere from simple attack boosts and maybe a graveyard lock of sorts to... It can be activated before your normal draw. One of the cards from your normal draw this turn will be a Dragon of Pride and Soul. Send all the cards from your hand, deck, extra, and field to the graveyard, and return all of your banished cards... Sorry, what? Send all other cards from your hand, deck, extra, and field to the graveyard and return all of your banished cards to the grave. And if you have 25 or more cards in your grave, randomly send 25 cards with the same names as those in your graveyard from outside of your deck to your opponent's graveyard. After using this, you can't normal or special except Dragon of Pride or activate card effects for the rest of this duel. The relevant effect is number 2. That's not the relevant effect! While skills used to be a nice little bonus in your deck years ago, just a way to help you get back into the game with something like Destiny Draw or to seal off your opponent's grave for a turn, many of these skills have become deciding game pieces that are mandatory uses for the competitive viability of so many decks. Conceptually, one of the positives of these skills is that it allows archetypes to do things that maybe the designers intended them to do 10 years ago, but they just didn't really have the consistency or really the sort of array of support cards that would have really helped them to achieve that. And of course, when you have a digital game that can just immediately add cards from outside of a deck and spawn pieces onto the field out of nothing, it becomes super wacky and, dare I say, very fun. And that is where the vision gets actually realized. Conversely, a lot of people have kind of complained that recent players are just sort of playing skills instead of decks. These abilities have become so powerful and so integral and adjacent to certain archetypes that you're kind of just following an on-rail track towards what the designers intended you to do in one unchainable instance. For me, I still don't know if I'm a big fan of skills. I suppose they do in some sort of form take away from the essence of Yu-Gi-Oh, but it does transform it into something new and unique, for better or for worse. And there is obviously a massive appeal in this. The consistency and viability for certain archetypes that they gain just from the existence of these skills is absolutely massive, and obviously extremely fun for people who like those decks. But to tell you the truth, the biggest problem that I have with skills and stuff like that in Duel Links is everything associated with around obtaining them and leveling up towards them, etc. When you build a deck in Duel Links, you build a deck played by a character. Now normally you can get away with just choosing whoever, like Yugi or Joey and Jaden, and it's fine, but the problem is that to really optimize your deck, you want to play a character that has synergy with your deck. Most of the run-of-the-mill average skills are usable by a big number of characters in the game, but the thing is, some have really important ones. For example, you kind of just can't play Infernity optimally without, like, Kalen. Kalen requires you to level him up. It's just gacha gameplay, yeah. You have to first of all obtain and unlock Kalen, which I can't even remember how anymore, but at least when I did it many years ago, you had to do a X number of summons or deal X damage while in 5D's world, and then you had to level them, either by playing as them and dueling in ranked, or against various PvE, player versus environment bots. The problem, of course, being that PvE bots have a timer that they don't just respawn instantly to. You can't just sit and farm them infinitely. However, if you do want to level a character faster, you can pay to have more PvE bots respawn faster and grant more XP. And there's even an option to auto-duel. Yes, you can click a button and it automatically duels for you. What are we doing here? Anyway, as someone who just wants to play Yu-Gi-Oh! At its core, having skills and very important game pieces locked behind the leveling system is frustrating. How do I get Gallant Granite? It says it's from the event. How long is that going to take me? Can I, like, just get the Granite, like, a couple of duels, in and out, fun little journey? Days! For anyone who has ever played Adamantipator, the deck that I chose to run during my return to the game, you're likely very familiar with how important Gallant Granite is. The rank 4 monster that allows you to search a rock. Searching Block Dragon is sort of the heart and soul combo of the deck. Well, in order to get Gallant Granite, you have to win, I believe it's 40 ranked games. But then, here's the paradox. you have to play a very suboptimal version of the deck in ranked. Now let me level with you here. So this idea of a almost RPG-like system where very slowly over time your deck gets more powerful and stronger as you obtain more cards, I think conceptually is really cool and definitely has a place, in my opinion, more so in a PvE environment. When it comes to PvP and in a game that has microtransactions, that becomes really frustrating and not fun. Ultimately, at the low ranks, yeah, you will just be bullying children, but as you get higher and higher, you are going to encounter good players and good decks, and if you just don't have these important cards and game pieces, their deck is just better than yours, and you're gatekept behind optimization. Gates are PvE events where you go and duel against various characters from across the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise based on difficulty settings. Only reason you would want to go into a gate is to finitely grind. You have to collect random colored keys to unlock the gate to play in a duel to get points and hope a very specific card you need randomly drops. This is such a frustrating mess of gate after paywall after level up reward. So many barriers and obstacles to just getting maybe like one optimal, really important piece or card in your deck that actually brings it all together. Now, thankfully, everything I just described, for the most part in recent times, hasn't been as relevant. With anniversary events, box releases, login bonuses, and all the kind of stuff that you can expect from a gacha, they have sort of introduced more skips that you can get, like these tickets or skill chips that are exchanged for things you actually need from these gates historically. Now, not all cards can be obtained via these returnee, like, tickets, etc. Usually not the best ones.
So can I get an actual Adamantipator card from here? Secret. That's not the seeker I was looking for. That's not the same seeker, actually.
And the skill chips can be exchanged to get those skills or character drops because unless you've played the game from release, you're kind of just going through hoops of these tedious, boring grinds to play the 37th best deck in the game. So all of that to say is that sometimes optimizing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links is not even so much a case of just spend more money, although spending more money does fix about 95% of the problems. There are also just events and time-gated situations where you can't get some cards. I remember very vividly a couple years ago when I was trying to play Burning Abyss, I just couldn't get Leviathan Dragon. It was just locked behind a time-gated event that I didn't play at the time, so I just didn't have that card. This the worst experience I've had in a game.
Oh, please, please, Seeker, please, 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 please. Fuck! Worst day of my life, dude. Actually, the worst day of my life. Okay, imagine if this is Researcher.
So I'm just going to explain this to you like you're a little bit Master Duel brained. Let's say you want to play Dragon Maid, which I think was in the set early this year. You have to go to the shop and purchase packs for the Dragon Maid set. Okay, so far so good, right? I mean, that's pretty logical, right? Now you buy 10 packs, and you don't pull any Dragon Maid cards. Womp womp. Unlucky. At least you, I don't know, maybe pulled like a super rare. Let's exchange this super rare that we don't want for a currency or a dust of sorts, so that I can use it to get another card I want instead because it wants to play Evil Swarm or whatever other random archetype they put in the same pack that almost never has any real synergy or even thematic overlap with one another. That's not to say Master Duel doesn't do that. I mean, come on. Tearlament, Mermail, Water, I guess. There is no crafting system in Duel Links. Not a meaningful one anyway. You cannot obtain cards by simply making them. 90% of the cards in the game, and within that 90% you can guarantee that these are the ones you actually want, the good cards, the new decks and archetypes, these all have to be pulled naturally. You just have to randomly pull the cards you need. Now, it isn't as bad as it sounds because when you pull from a box, the boxes have a limited supply. Think of an actual real-life booster box, except it's significantly bigger, and it has every single card in the set within. So if you pull enough packs, you will get the card you need because every card is in the box. Here's the catch. In order to create a rarity system to dilute the good pulls, you may find that some common cards have a total of 6 copies in the box, whereas the ultra rare has 1. So, a box with over 200 packs means that you're going to be flooded with essentially just pack filler before you finally get the ultra rare you need, and of course, a lot of the ultra rares you need are 3-ofs, like my Adamantipator Researcher, meaning 3 total boxes have to be pulled just for 3 copies of Adamantipator Researcher. Okay, so let's say you use like a bundle deal and then you buy 40 packs. Miraculously, you get lucky and you pull the ultra rare you need in, I don't know, pack number 2. What happens to the rest of those 38 packs? I only needed the ultra rare and maybe a couple of supers. Can't I just move on to the next box? Tough. Because you pulled the one-off ultra rare in the entire set, the remaining 38 packs are just cards that you don't really want or cards that are not a priority and you should have just reset the box. The problem with using reset the box after you pull an ultra is that it only resets after you pull all the ultras in the set, not the one you're specifically looking for. So if you do get that illustrious Adamantipator Researcher as your first ultra rare pull of the box, you're going to have to open the rest of the packs from that bundle you bought and just keep opening them and hope you get the supers you need in the process. But the most important card is the ultra. So in Duel Links, technically the optimal way to min-max this almost criminal system of obtaining cards is to pull 1 pack at a time. The problem with pulling 1 pack at a time is that it is so much more expensive than using the bundle deals, but the bundle deals have all of the risks of over-pulling from a box that need to be reset on pack, 3 out of 37 as an example.
Why are you playing Duel Links? Because I hate myself! Sorry. It's good content.
So everything I just mentioned is nothing new. This has been how the game has been designed from the beginning. So yeah, no disenchanting, no dusting, no crafting. That is my biggest #1 issue with Duel Links and why I won't be playing the game consistently. However, when you do get into the game and when you do start playing, it is some of the most wacky, enjoyable fun I've had. But hey, there is a currency in the game called gold. What is it for? I don't know. I think I've engaged with this system like once ever. You accrue literal millions of this shit, and you use it on the card trader. But you see, since you have such a massive influx of this, I would probably equate it to maybe something equivalent of like the rare and normal dust in Master Duel. It's not as prominent of a system in currency to actually meaningfully obtain decks. You are not going to be building strategies from scratch with this system. It will flesh out and fully optimize some decks and some cards from the card trader, but nothing close to the impact on deck building simply buying packs from the cash shop is going to do. I used the deck builder to create my list, and let's just not dedicate an entire section to the absolute most convoluted and clunky UI of Duel Links, but I had a rough idea of what I wanted to play. 20 cards with a 9-card extra deck is interesting. I hate the word interesting because it's usually such a nothing word from a literary perspective, but this was genuinely interesting. Flipping TCG decks on their head and making you rethink consistency, ratios, and even combos because now your extra deck is so limited, or in this case, because your deck is actually so much more consistent, is a genuinely fun and thought-provoking process. Do I really need 3 Block Dragon in 20? Can I maybe just play 2? Should I really be running all 6 Quakimerus? Do I go over 20 and just play Karthorther and Turtle as well? What about Xeno Guitar and Taco Crusader and Revival Golem? What is my end board going to look like with such a small extra deck count? And how does my unique skill contribute to the deck? With all of this in mind, after a nightmare session of obtaining the cards, I finally had something resembling a deck. Or did I?
Well, I don't know about you, but this is Adamantipator.
This game is sick. I can't even tell you how much fun I had once I actually started to queue into the duels once I got the cards I needed. It is so good, and it's just such a shame how sandbagged and how paywalled everything is. Like, it is such a unique breath of fresh air on a take on Yu-Gi-Oh! That, wasn't like cross-duel. God, Jeff, remember cross-duel? Do you miss cross-duel? I miss cross-duel, dude. It's fast, it's wacky, the skills create such unbelievably ridiculous moments and combos, it is dumb fun, and I don't know what else to say, it was fantastic. The rank decay system meant that despite having been king of games multiple times, I had to go back to the cesspool of rookie and bronze, so I couldn't really give you a detailed explanation as to what the metagame looks like or how the format feels, and all of the fun I had, I mean, let's be real, it could be very much overshadowed by the fact that I was winning all the time, so who knows what it would be like against an actual competent deck. But ultimately, this experiment was about dedicating an entire afternoon to jumping back in, playing the game as a new/returning player to experience what's available in a more casual setting. Which, for this specific occasion, in my circumstance specifically, it was fine, honestly. I probably spent a little bit more than I intended to with my budget. I think I spent about $50, but that got me 2.5 decks, a Adamantipator deck missing 1 or 2 Researcher. I got most of the branded deck, missing I think 1 Aliver, and I think Chimera is also done as well, so I can play full power branded if I want to. The problem is, like, you know, it would be nice if I could just play the deck I wanted to and intended to play. Shout out to the massive community I honestly didn't even know that I had, who absolutely love Duel Links. I opened the Duel Room and it was filled, no joke, within like 30 seconds. People showing off cool decks, which for context was faster than some of the Master Duel Rooms I've opened. Where do you people come from? Why is there this many Duel Links players? There's no way there's this many Duel Links players.
Oh, I don't get it. I don't get it.
There is obviously a demand for Duel Links, and there must be a sizable, thriving player base who love this game for lots of positive gameplay-related reasons. It's a fun, enjoyable experience at its core. The games are fast, despite the absurd levels of power creep that's occurred since I last hit King of Games. I think it was Baby Raccoons, who made a big token and set Fiendish Chain. There's a lot of good, positive takeaways from Duel Links. The skills are unique, different, and interesting, although some of them really are just one-card combos that utilize 8 things from outside of your deck. I guess I'll never really fully understand the game to its complete depth, because I don't intend to play again really or more consistently. Again, my biggest problem with Duel Links has never really been so much gameplay related. It is the overflowing, overabundance, clunky UI, paywalls, gatekeeping, and just obstacles that are always in place when it comes to getting cards. But maybe some of you had a different kind of experience playing Duel Links in the anniversary event earlier this year, or maybe some of you did return to play Branded and Adamantipator, or even Rush Duel for whatever reason, I guess, if that's a thing. I didn't even try that, sorry, so that's not what this video is about. But there is a whole other game mode I heard is significantly cheaper, but I, of course, was focusing on Speed Duel, which is, at its core, more of the Yu-Gi-Oh! That I was interested in playing. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment down below with your experiences and your criticisms or positives and praise of Duel Links, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.